Are you falling in love with Photoshop?
Oh, no, I think I was in love with Photoshop. By like 2.5, I was in love the day we met. I mean,
Wow. Hello, my name is Russell Preston Brown from Adobe, and we're now on the Photoshop archives, and we're going to be speaking with Meredith Payne Stotzner. She goes back to the beginning of time at Adobe, and she has done so much to contribute to the success of Adobe Photoshop. Meredith,
Russell,
good morning.
That was an amazing introduction. I'm humbled and terrified to live up to that.
It is so fantastic to have you here. I've had several different guests on the show, but none of them has had as much impact on the interface and the users of Adobe Photoshop than you. You interact with the public and you get input from those people and you bring that input back to the applications. Meredith, there's no one else like you. Your background is in science and technology. So what's your creative and academic background, and how did the blending of art and science come together for you?
So I have a degree in imaging and photographic technology from RIT. So we did all sorts of fun things there. We did synchroballistic photography, optics, photochemistry. 94 was the first year, my summer internship. I worked for NASA, doing photography for NASA at the Langley Research Center. I had my own little minivan, and I had a medium format camera and 35 millimeter camera, and I was like running all around base.
With film.
With film. Yeah. But then the next year I came back and I helped Langley set up their Photoshop lab.
So that was your first your first introduction. You're getting some appreciation for Photoshop at that time?
Yes.
Are you falling in love with Photoshop?
Oh, no, I think I was in love with Photoshop. By like 2.5, I was in love the day we met. I mean, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it was love at first sight. So the Photoshop classes were part of the studio photography curriculum, and I was in the imaging and photo tech curriculum. So I was able to kind of jump over and take classes outside of my major, and I couldn't stop. I took every class they would let me take. And I feel like a lot of those lessons that I learned, I used in Photoshop. Back in my early days on the team, I was a QE, meaning I was a tester. So I tested the product, especially when we were doing things like HDR, just bringing out some of the color measurement, color science. It kind of helps to be nerdy on the Photoshop team.
Nerdy's a good quality.
Yeah. When the researchers talk, I know just enough to kind of understand what they're talking about. Right? I mean, these are the brightest minds at Adobe. So yeah, I feel like that background has helped me stay in touch with the researchers. You know, we also did a little bit of computer science. I had to take a C++ class.
What?
I did.
Okay, I have to come back with that one.
Yeah.
You took C++?
I did.
I had to learn how to write PostScript.
Russell, do you know I started on the PostScript team?
Quick, he goes to camera. You started on the PostScript team.
I did. I started on PostScript.
That's something we didn't know.
The printing technology group was what the PostScript team had become, turned into PTG, Printing Technology Group. And we also did a lot with PDF and printing. Yeah, so I could actually, like you, can still open up a PostScript file or a PDF or an EPS, encapsulated PostScript file, and read a little bit about what's happening there.
Okay. So what was your first introduction to Photoshop, and how did you first come about it, and has that introduction changed over time?
So my first introduction to Photoshop was back at RIT. They had an electronic still photography class. And in that class, it was my first introduction to Photoshop. It was version 2.5. I did entire portfolio before layers.
I'm impressed.
It was hard, but I loved it. I was like, this is incredible. I love this.
What year is this?
93 or 94.
Close to the beginning of time.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll run into a problem where we've created a feature and we get some feedback from users, or I'll hear from somebody at Max or Photoshop World or WPPI or something, and I was like, we never intended the feature to be used that way. But God, aren't you creative? Look what you did. We give people these tools, but we have no control over how they're going to use it. And they just use them in the most amazing ways. And, aside from the creative stuff that they're doing, they really push the limits of the technology, which is amazing.
For all the creatives that are out there, what the heck is synchroballistic technologies for photography?
Synchroballistic photography. I took it as a class at RIT. It was a high-speed and synchroballistic photography. And this is where you take a photo of a bullet going through a melon and exploding the melon.
Whoa.
And you can't just sit in a dark room and fire off guns at melons, right? There's math behind that. So we had to calculate the speed of sound, and I'm sure we use the speed of light in there somewhere too, to figure out when we fired the gun, where the bullet would be to go through the melon, and that would trigger when the flash would fire. So we had to figure out where to put that little sensor to get the flash to fire the moment the bullet went through the melon.
I can see. What an amazing class.
Not only was the class fun and exciting, a little terrifying to be in a room, because we don't actually calculate shutter speed. We turn out all the lights, we open our shutter, covered in plastic garbage bags, because when a melon explodes, your camera's going to get wet. So your camera's covered in a plastic garbage bag, you're in a plastic garbage bag. But when the bullet goes through that melon, it like, you can taste it. You're like, yummy.
So how important is science and math to photography and color space and all of this? How has that played into all of this?
Photographers have always had to really understand their technology. They had to know that when you have a long exposure, at some point, those silver halide crystals get tired of having the photons and release them. So you end up having to do a longer exposure. So there's always been science and chemistry, right? You can't have photography without chemistry of some sort too. And then nowadays, as we have AI help us do the tedious tasks while we're being creative, it's important to know, how some of that works as well.
Take all this science and technology and all your background. How does that all come together to bring us the features that you've developed?
For me in particular, my day-to-day, I'm more disconnected from the science and the math and the chemistry. But I do speak to the researchers, and it's good to have, a little bit of a scientific mind when the researchers are telling you about a project, and then I'm having to connect that to my customers, all the people I've spoken to who show me their workflows. And side note, I'm always so humbled by how generous our users are with their time with me, to sit and take an hour out of their day and show me their workflow. So I've got to think about that, and then the researcher who's a little disconnected from that, and somehow bring that all together.
Where do these features come from? Who's generating these ideas for the selection tool, or for one of my favorites, sky replacement that you worked on, which was really fantastic.
One of our founding principles is good ideas come from everywhere.
Yes.
So I know that some engineers have suggested features. Our QE, our quality engineering, our testers, a lot of those come from industry. Like we have photographers and retouchers who are now part of the Photoshop team who are working as testing it. And then customers suggest things. So ideas come from everywhere. And sky replacement came out of that. It was a common workflow that photographers trying to do weddings in San Diego in June faced the June gloom and need a better sky. Everybody needs a better sky.
I must admit, I must have done my fair share of replacing skies and had a demo on how to create the mask for the sky and then go photograph the sky and place the sky. But sky replacement was incredible for what it did, and it's blending the number of layers it created, the number of adjustments it put on it. It gave me the ability to fine-tune it once it was done.
A key focus is to take these things that are beyond people's skill level, but they have it in their brain, but they need to get it on the screen or on paper. And so we're trying to create tools that let them get that idea that's in their head and unlock and unblock all those technical challenges. In the meantime, also, one of the things you mentioned that you liked about sky replacement is being able to go back and it's re-editable, it's non-destructive,
Yeah.
you've got specific layers. And what I love about that feature is I feel like we satisfied both groups of people.
Yeah.
Is the people who just want to click a button and make it work, and then also the people who want to adjust it, and then even deeper, the people who want to go through and maybe edit the mask.
Selection of a sky brings up selections overall. You played a key role in selections and select subject.
Selections are a key pillar of what our users do. And I almost killed select subject.
She almost killed select subject. Subject.
Done. Yeah. Select subject, the researchers came to us. And, one of the things we mentioned is we say selecting, compositing, these are lighting, these are all key workflows that our users, we want to always continually improve on and make easier for our users. And a researcher came and said, okay, I have this. It was such a basic selection that it was making. There's no feathering, there was no transition. It was very blocky. I was like, guys, I don't know. I don't think users are struggling to make a basic, simple selection.
Why were you so skeptical?
Because we had the quick select tool at the time, right? Quick select, you could do, right? Oh, it would select too much. You'd have to dial it back. You need to select more. But I thought a basic selection, our users weren't struggling with making one of those. Wow. And I said, but let me look into it. So we grabbed a boxy image of a house, an image of a fuzzy cat. And two kids playing in a stream. And I grabbed users of all different skill levels, from beginners to intermediates to pro advanced users, showed them the images. How long will this take you to make a selection, a basic selection, not feathered, refine edge or anything? How long will it take you to make a basic selection? What tool will you use? And how difficult is this task? So for that cat to make the basic blocky selection took 10 seconds. And I was like, kiss of death. Okay. It's way too long. Nobody's going to wait for that.
10 seconds.
But when we timed our users, it averaged like a minute, 17 seconds. And it took every single user longer than they had predicted. And then most users switched tools. They found the tool that they were using was not working. So that was kind of key. And, maybe we've got something here. And then the technology has just gotten better and better and better. So that was like 2017, I was doing that test. 2018, I think we shipped the feature. But we haven't given up. We didn't just stop there.
Yeah.
We know selections are key, and we just keep improving. We're still working on selections today.
Is it not also true, he looks to camera, that the research and technology that you did with selections was then adopted by the Lightroom team?
Yes. I think the technology behind Select Subject is the catalyst for the object selection tool, which is one of my top 10 features, is the object selection tool and the people details selection. Love that. But also I think that technology has permeated through other Adobe projects. Can you imagine if I had killed it? Oh my gosh.
One of the features you worked on that's really quite spectacular, amazing, where it's a group of people sitting in the scene. It sees the gentleman's beard, it sees the woman's dress, it identifies each object.
Yes, select details. So it's inside the object selection tool. It starts detecting the people and then all of their attributes. So
it's stunning. And it lists them.
Yes.
As items you can select. Is that used quite a bit?
I use it quite a bit.
Yeah,
it's one of my top 10 features to demo.
There's been a lot of changes with Select Subject. How has that evolved over time? And what's happening right now?
Absolutely continuing to work on it because selections are so key and so important. So there's lots of stuff I can't tell you about.
Ooh, we like that.
However, some of the things that you would have seen fairly recently is Select Subject was only on the cloud. And then we put a version on device. But the device version wasn't as good as the cloud version because, the cloud version, you've got a giant server, room full of server, superpower that can get you a really great selection. And then we had a smaller version of that model that you could use on device. And in the last gosh, about a year ago. It's matched, it's parity, the two. So you can use select subject in the cloud and on device and get those amazing, every spoke of that bicycle tire.
That's a big change.
Yeah.
What are your top features to demo?
I don't know that I can rattle them all off the top of my head.
It's okay.
But a lot of them right around the remove tool. I think the remove tool is amazing.
Remove tool is the unsung hero from what you're saying.
Yes, the
And
remove tool.
you should learn to use that more often.
Make your selection and then hit remove in the contextual taskbar. The remove tool is now the first generative AI model that Adobe has that runs on device. So you can, assuming you have a fast enough machine, you can download the generative AI remove algorithm onto your system and run it locally.
Is that a difficult process? This downloading this?
No,
it just comes
we
with.
have an amazing design team. You know, our designers are amazing. They made it easy. Yeah, so it's in the options bar.
Some of the best designers are on the Photoshop team.
I would say all of the best designers are on the Photoshop team.
Give us another one.
In the remove tool, the people detection,
People detection.
you have the option to remove the people there. You can add to or subtract from.
Yes, very, very nice.
Yeah, the wires is not generative. The wire and cable removal is a dedicated algorithm. So it's not Gen AI, dedicated algorithm just for wires going across the sky. And it is chef's kiss amazing.
Well. Let's say this again, because this is very interesting.
Its only job on this planet is to get wires and cables across like skies, trees, and buildings.
Meredith, tell me about rotate object.
Ooh, that's one of our new features. Very cool. Again, kind of helping people get past those boring, tedious, hard to do things to, get their vision out on their screen.
Get the pose just right. I'm looking in the right direction or to move your feet slightly.
Shortly before we released Rotate Object, we released Harmonize. And you can take an object, place it in a scene, and not only will it relight the object to match the scene, it'll also add attaching shadows so it looks natural in the scene, like it belongs there. But what it won't do is, because we put this focus on what we call identity preservation, we won't modify the object at all. It's like 99.9% won't change the object other than the lighting. But if the perspective is off, so that's where rotate object comes in. And even if the perspective of your person doesn't match, rotate object is going to fix that for you. And then once you get it in place, it actually calls back that harmonize feature.
Yeah, I like the way
everything.
You rotate it and then it rethinks, it recalculates the orientation and builds it.
Yeah.
You said something there in that conversation which we can't pass up, and that's harmonize.
Yeah,
and
love that.
Go into that a little bit more. Was that one of your projects?
It was.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Must have gone through some development or evolution in its process. Did it just start immediately? Did it get better and better?
So we kind of have to envision what it will look like for our users. Can it solve these problems for our users? And anything relighting, lighting, kind of holy grail for Photoshop is yes, we have to do this, because we've actually done harmonization projects before.
Yeah.
We were working on a harmonization project that used like a series of adjustment layers. And when this other project came along from the research team, it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But one of the things that we struggled with it was that identity preservation, making sure the original object didn't change. And that was one of the things that the researchers had to go in and retrain. And we tested it with lots of customers and until we got it right. And I think right now it's doing exactly what it should be doing. It has one of the highest user satisfaction ratings of any feature in Photoshop.
What's your favorite feature? Do you have a favorite feature?
We've already talked that I love the remove tool. However, generative expand, I think is like, once you have generative expand, you can never go back to not having generative expand.
I would absolutely, totally agree with you. It is an unsung hero.
Oh, yes.
That everyone uses.
I had mentioned that the generative version of the remove tool is now there's an on-device model that you can use on device. There's a trend where a lot of people, they would love to use generative AI, but because they work in enterprise, they can't send stuff up to the cloud. We're working towards bringing some more generative models to work on device.
So we're aware of the Los Alamos Labs situation or a government situation where they're not connected and never will be connected to the rest of the world.
All your car manufacturers, all your game manufacturers.
Is that right?
Yeah, I went to Japan Max and I met with Nissan and Nintendo, and they're like, nope, nothing cloud.
Thank you once again for watching the Photoshop Archives. I'm Russell Brown, and we just spoke with Meredith Payne Stotzner. See you next time.